How's it going, guys?
Enrique, what's up, brother?
What's up, Jerome?
How you been, man? Welcome,
Pretty
welcome
good,
back,
actually.
man. Yeah,
Fabulous right
see you.
now that I'm free.
I see you, bro. No doubt, no doubt. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was just talking to Laverne because Laverne will not be here with us today. She is doing the Lord's work. As we all know, she feeds about 5,000 people a week. Nonetheless,
Mm.
we have I'm super excited for this guest. He's tried and true. We all know him as being just one of the biggest fighters that this country could have on the battlefield. Um, I just want to introduce him and let him talk about himself. We have Enrique Tarrio. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm blessed to be in your presence. And why don't you just go ahead and give a small dissertation? And Jerome, we'll get to you, but we got to
No,
get
we're
to this
good.
man
Let
first.
no, no, no. Let Enrique talk. I'm just here for the show.
Right? We'll get to this man. We'll get to you
Yeah,
right after this man.
no, we're
Well,
good.
I want to thank you guys, and I'm honored to be in the presence of you guys. I've been following you guys for a while. I followed what was happening in Georgia also, um, but I'm just a regular dude, and I think that any Trump supporter that would have been put in our position would have done the same. So, and the actual heroes, while we were in prison in this concrete coffin, the actual heroes are the people that fought for Trump. Those people are my heroes. Those people are the ones that deserve all the praise because it's because of them that me and 1,600 other people were pardoned for the events of what happened on January 6th. And we know that the liberals' um, story about what happened on January 6th was a complete and utter lie. They made us sound really cool during their prosecution of us. They made it sound like we planned the whole thing, and when really the only plan that we had for January 6th was to listen to our president speak and to fight a stolen election. And that is the only thing that we planned on doing that day. So again, I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate your viewers, and thank you so much.
You know, you said you're a regular guy, but I have to just kind of give, your dissertation of how you described yourself. You said you are the shogun of the notorious Proud Boys, seditiously unapologetic.
That's
Fifth
true.
degree. Does that mean a fifth degree black belt?
No, no, it doesn't
Is
mean
that the
that, but
fifth
yes,
degree of the
it's
higher level people?
yeah. So that's a
Okay.
degree in our organization, and that's it doesn't mean like rank or anything. It's just a degree, like something to attain, something to look forward to in our men's fraternity. It's a drinking club. We're not a political group. We're a cultural group. The issues that we have um, with the things that are going on in America isn't something that you can legislate away, and you can't just keep locking people up and think the problem's going to go away. The problems that we have in America are cultural.
Right.
The issues that we have with um, I'm trying to be a little bit PC here,
No,
but
no, 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 no. This is Laverne Spicer's show.
okay.
PC does not exist on this
What's that?
platform. So
What's
go
that?
go for it.
Transsexual individuals, or what I say is transvestites, reading to kids. I think it's a huge problem. Um, is it and it's a problem in a lot of the big cities, and this is a thing that we fight against. We fight against, like, our main concern is the way that you make America great again is you start at home. You start with the families, you start with the family unit, and you start in your communities. And what we're seeing by the left here in our communities is things like this. So this is something that we fight.
And you're the grand dynamo of Villain City. Tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, some of those things are over the top on the bio, and it's just made. Basically, I'm the president of our local chapter here in Miami,
Okay.
and that chapter is called Villain City. We do have another chapter in Miami called Vice City, and they're different chapters, and that one's head by Ethan Nordine. Which is was on my case also. He's one of my brothers that got tried for seditious conspiracy. So some of those things, obviously, they're a little bit overblown, but for the most part, we're a regular drinking club that has an issue with how the American left is running things in this country and ran this thing for 4 years, and we're very happy with what the president's done in the past 3 months.
And which would make you the United States Secretary of Retaliation, because that, I mean, that says a lot to what you've been fighting for. I share some similarities with you, not to the extreme of being incarcerated, but I've been
That's what they
followed
wanted
by,
to do to you.
you know, it was a lot.
If Fannie had her way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the feds followed me for a year and a half. They, you know, wherever my Uber, wherever I was going in Uber, they were right there. They served me with a subpoena to come and testify in DC for the January 6th case, which I didn't know how I ended up, you know, in a Fed case for January 6th, because at that time, that direct time, I was in Georgia interviewing a woman in which I am indicted behind. So just to know that they've gone through my emails, my tax records, you know, just follow. When you've been followed for a year and a half, you just kind of don't have any fear. Sort of like that Winnie Mandela, what your country could do to you, they've done it to you. And I think that you know, you share those sentiments. But yeah, it's been a drastic turnaround. Since Trump was elected. I was at the inauguration, couldn't have been more proud to be in this fight for America. You know, at this point now, our district attorney, DA, has been disqualified from the case. Senate overwhelmingly, as well as the House in Georgia, passed Senate Bill 244 for us to be able to retrieve compensation for all of our legal fees. And the moment is just coming, hopefully sooner than later, where we get to come after directly Fulton County and Fannie Willis, because that Senate Bill 244 allowing us compensation pretty much opened up the door for us to do, if not a class action suit against Fulton County, naming Fannie Willis as a defendant, individual retribution should be on the table. So yeah, it's been a long battle. You know, I actually came into this situation December 10th, 2021, when Reuters broke the story of me in the police station and showing the body cam, some of the body cam video, and cutting and pasting some of the conversation. Over 2 minutes, they drew a whole story, and I ended up being the #1 trending story in the world that day. They basically said, look, Trump put Kanye up to it. And since I worked with Kanye, they said, oh, you know, this is this whole thing, and they're all together, when they couldn't have been further from the truth. So I think God has stepped in. You know, God wins again. America wins. So I'm still on the battlefield, but crossing that bridge to where, you know, victory is just on the other side. So that's in a nutshell of what happened.
Yes.
I'm not going into the specifics of what happened, because when the feds are tailing you daily and they let you know they're outside waiting on a daily basis, and this is some of the stories that I've never told anybody. But yeah, I was followed by the feds for a year and a half, and they made no silent gestures to let me know, look, we're outside. We're here. We're on every phone call. We know where you're going in Uber. We know everything about you. And I still had no fear in the situation. And for you to be, you know, behind bars and then to be given this pardon and still be on the battlefield, you know, I'm just so proud of you guys. And there's a clip that I have. Jerome, we do want to let you introduce yourself.
No, go ahead. Everybody know me.
Please
everybody know me.
Yourself really quickly, please.
No, everybody know me, Jerome Bell, the host of the Radical Republicans live show every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You know, you know, I met Enrique, a little short story. I met Enrique down, I forget who it was. I think Dallas, you know, when I was running for Congress the first time, 2020, you know, and here's what I got out of what they tried to do to Enrique real quick, is that he was to them a big threat because he was a black dude, black Puerto Rican dude, leading a white group, right? You know, able to go across racial lines and bring people together, you know, like a Malcolm X coming back from Mecca, right? You know, people started to listen. I mean, because it was just all about America first. It was all about, what happened on January 6th, and it was nothing racial about that, and I think the same thing with you. What they tried to do to you because you was a black woman, very, boisterous and truth telling, and they truly want to take down and still want to take down any black people that can cross lines. They can get white people to listen to them, right? And this is what happened, I believe, to both of you. Especially Enrique. When I saw them throw down that sentence of 20 years or some shit, and
22.
Enrique wasn't even in
22
DC,
years,
22, and he wasn't even in DC. I'm like, yeah, this is a takedown. I mean, because who leads the Proud Boys? They wanted to be able to say, it was a white supremacist group. They wanted to say that it was a racist group, and they couldn't do that with Enrique in the forefront. They cannot do that, and they cannot, post that narrative, with him there. So they totally want to take him out of the picture, and then come back around, and say it was just racist group, man. And I'm just glad that, like I said, that God stepped in, and put His hand on this entire situation.
Amen.
And just exposed the total fraud of it all. I mean, because when you look at it, I'm still waiting for motherfuckers to go down. I'm still waiting for people to get arrested. I'm still waiting for people to be indicted by Pam Bondi from the fucking Biden crime family, period. Especially the ones that all didn't receive pardons, and hopefully those pardons, from President Trump are not going to go through. And I mean, at least they start investigations on these people. People are getting a little restless, waiting on shit to happen. Waiting on Pam Bondi to do her job, waiting on Bongino and Cash to, indict some of the people that caused this mess in the first place. And they're not hard to find. They're sitting right there in Congress. You got, Shifty Schiff. You got, people like that that's still sitting in the halls of Congress that caused all this mess and pretty much a lot of the turmoil. So, I'm just happy you're out, happy you're home, man, and that you're still in the fight, Enrique.
Yeah. And I thank you so much. And I want to address something that you said that's very important. The most dangerous thing to tyrannical governments, because my family came from Cuba, the most dangerous thing that for tyrannical governments is voices. And there's a reason why the First Amendment is the very first one, and it's free speech, because it is a danger to what we saw was a tyrannical government for 4 years. What we saw with the Biden administration, forget about just the economy and everything else that he was doing, the weaponization of the government against political opponents and people who had a voice and people who were good at organizing. And we saw it with all the January 6 cases. We saw it with Alex Jones. We saw it all over the place. We saw it with Roger Stone. We are a danger to those in power that want to abuse that power. With the situation with Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, and Pam Bondi, I'm a patient person, and I really do. I'm a big supporter of Kash, and I'm a big supporter of Bongino. There's not a lot of time, right? We have 3.5 years of Trump left.
Yep.
We have a year and a half up until midterms. We don't know how that midterm is going to work, so we do have to start planning, and we need to start organizing, and we need to start seeing and preparing for the future. So they do need to jump on this horse and move forward. I have been a little critical about the Pam Bondi, and I have been a little critical on Kash. My loyalty is to the president. My loyalty is to the president for multiple reasons. Number one is because, number one, it's because of his policies. I don't support the president just because he's Trump. I don't hold anybody on that pedestal except God. But I'm loyal to the president. That loyalty does not extend to his appointees, and while I do support Kash and Bongino, I will use my voice when they make a bad decision, because some of these decisions that are being made, I only have beef with one decision that Bongino and Kash have made so far. They have appointed to the most important field office in the country, which is the Washington field office. They appointed one of the masterminds in the FBI that did these political prosecutions and called American citizens domestic terrorists. So I will call that out. I mean, I'm not giving up on them. They do need to start making those arrests, but already that's a bad decision. That's not about patience. That's not an issue about patience. You know, we saw that with Mike Pence, right? So funny as it may be, we're working on a documentary, and the film crew, the producer, called me the other day, and he's like, "Hey, can you pull up some like old footage and old pictures?" And I have everything backed up. So I was going through the timeline. When I got to 2016, I saw like the memes and the support that I showed for Mike Pence. And we saw what Mike Pence did on January 6th. He didn't even question. He didn't even give time. He just said, "Okay, this is good, no problem." So I look back at some of those pictures. I'm like, man, he didn't. I'm not pissed because he duped me. He duped the president of the United States. He duped the person that chose him and put him in that position, right? So there's a lot of people that I'm happy with. I'm happy with Tulsi Gabbard. I'm happy with Pete Hegseth. We've seen a lot of action from him. But that like I said, that loyalty only to the president as being the president of the United States, the leader of the free world and the leader of the best country in the world. So I think it's important for us to hold our government accountable as conservatives. As conservatives, that is our job. As citizens of the United States, that is our job.
Gene Robinson said, "I didn't know that he appointed the mastermind behind all the arrests for January 6th and the political persecution of you and many others." Yes, he did.
His name's Steve Jensen.
Steve Jensen, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people don't know. I mean, guys, you guys just need to stay, with the ear to the ground. I know it's hard, with everything that's going on here in America and all of the, the mainstream media propaganda. They control the airwaves, they throw it out there. I mean, but if you guys need to hit up people, and stay in touch with Travion, Enrique, myself, Laverne, and people that are actually putting this stuff out shit on an hourly basis, sometimes on X. You guys need to follow us. I mean, and really stay in tune to what's going on, because that was a very, very important move. Like you say, that's the biggest fieldhouse office in DC. That was a huge move, and it was a bad move. It was a terrible move. And Enrique, I apologize. I said Puerto Rican. I meant Cuban. I meant black Cuban. Shit, I knew that.
But you know what I wanted to tell you, Enrique, since you said that you do remain critical, about or around some of these appointees by President Trump. What I can tell you, as a factual conversation that I've had being connected to this new administration, I am allowed to be myself. I am allowed to be critical because you've been on the battlefield. There's nobody out here that has more of a right to be critical than people like you. So you don't have to hold any, until it is that you're appointed by the president and his agenda becomes your agenda, because that's
Secretary of Retaliation.
Exactly. You have every right. And I'm proud that this administration allows me to be myself and to be critical, because I've experienced many things firsthand that people who sit on the sidelines of life complain and bitch about. So just know you have every right to be critical. I question Pam Bondi all the time. A lot of people don't understand how it is that she even came into this appointment. But there was somebody on ground when Mar-a-Lago was raided, and that person just happens to be Pam Bondi. Right. So, there could have been some nepotism in that situation. We don't know. But overall, the consensus on what Pam Bondi is doing outside of having showcase moments, and media moments, we have yet to see the work. The reports that were released on JFK and Martin Luther King, how much good did that do us? We knew already what the situations were. Everything that we needed to know was redacted. So what's really happening in that, AG's office? And we all have to be, hyper sensitive to the fact that we haven't got the Epstein files. Like, you don't even hear about the Epstein files right now. All you hear about is tariffs and illegal immigration and people going back to El Salvador. Why is this conversation now obsolete when everybody was so, gung-ho thinking that we were going to get this because this administration told us. So we have every right to hold this administration accountable because we're the ones who are going to take this immediate heat from these tariff situations. So we should have a say in how this government is run. So yeah, say what you need to say. It needs to be said. A lot of people don't have the balls. A lot of times you get into these situations that you endured because you do have the balls. And so you're highly needed, highly needed.
And to touch on that subject too, it's a timing thing, right? Obviously I was in prison for 3 years, which is a lot better than some of my friends and my brothers and also brothers and sisters in J6. Some of them were locked up for 4 years. But what they were going to do to both of you and to a lot of the viewers that are watching now, if Biden would have stolen the election, if it wasn't too big to rig, okay, we would all be in chains. That's the truth.
Absolutely.
Because that was their
Absolutely.
goal. That was their goal. So it's just a timeline thing where I got arrested before, right? But you would have been in the same situation. You guys would have been in the same situation. So it's important that we hold these people accountable. Look, with Pam Bondi, again, I'm patient when it comes. I know it takes a little bit of time. Obviously, there's I'm going to say it again. There's a level of patience that I don't have because we don't have a lot of time. But look, some conservative influencers, right? Friends of mine that went to the White House and she told them, hey, we're going to release the Epstein files. And everybody took a picture with it, right? And she duped them. She's like, hey, look at this. I'm going to give you all of this. And it was nothing. It was a binder full of nothing. And, it made everybody look bad. If you make our president is a president of promises made, promises kept. He said that he was going to pardon the J6ers in the first 9 minutes. That's exactly what he did. A lot of people don't know this. After he swore on that Bible that he left that Capitol Rotunda, the Bureau of Prisons received emails and faxes saying, prepare to release these guys because we're going to send you these pardons. At 1:30 p.m. is when those emails were sent out to all the facilities that were holding J6ers. So we hold those appointees to the same standard. So we need appointees that are promises made, promises kept. Again, I am not ready to completely abandon some of his appointees, but things have to change because we have a short amount of time and our country depends on it. When we talk about retaliation and we talk about retribution, it's really what it means is accountability. Those people that put us in chains and put my friends and my family through the suffering that they did, those people have to pay for what they did. And what I mean by pay is that they need to be investigated. And I'm 100% sure that if they're investigated, they will be charged. And if they are charged, they will be found guilty and they should be put in a prison is where they belong.
Expeditiously. G, we have a clip from Enrique. Would you please put that up on the screen? I would love to hear a more in-depth dissertation on why Enrique posted this. G, are you there?
While he's loading it, I think that okay, there he goes.
Nope, that's not it. That's the Kanye post.
Oh man, Kanye.
I've never seen somebody recover from it.
Okay.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Get punked out and pimped out by some over greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man. So I believe that's a big problem with a lot of the actors out there because they get fluid. And next thing you know, once you go fluid, it's gone. You don't have any foundation to pull yourself back from. So maintain your man card, no matter what.
Man, I mean, one of the things you're seeing, you went to a whole different place.
Sorry.
No, I get it. So you see some guys struggling with that. You see Bieber struggling with that. You see some of these guys struggling with that.
They can't get it out of their head. They can't get it out of their head. The things that they did, no matter how they did it, whether they were drunk or high or whatever, you gave up your man card. You need therapy. And that's the thing that hurts them the most. And so they end up on drugs, end up every way to try and get rid of any principles there are. And that's what the business does. And the women that trade their bodies to go and get the role, they get to the point where they have their Oscar, they have their money, but they don't have their dream. They don't have the soul that they started with. So it's like achieving don't mean anything. If I get all the Nobel Prizes from doing all of this, but in the process I have to trade out all of my integrity to do it so that they can stay in place, what benefit is that if I lose my integrity? You got to go in as a principal. And what we were brought in here as men. We produce 1,500 sperm per heartbeat for a reason, because the aggression is necessary. You don't trade that in, no matter what.
Did you ever have the opportunity where you got invited and you said no to it?
Hell yeah.
What was the
Hell
consequences
yeah.
when you said no?
Puffy invited me for weeks, asking me to come and teach him how to, wanted me to be his acting coach for a while. Go there and he's sitting around just looking. I'm like, okay, what's the material you want to work on? He's just looking at me. Then next thing you know, okay, hey, will you help me? I want to hear your music. So I come over there and I play the music, and he's sitting there just looking at me, like waiting. Okay. So then my assistant was like, he wants to hang out with you next week. And I was like, for what? He's like, I think he's trying to fuck you. That's what my assistant said. And I was like, oh,
You can
okay. Now I get it. So now no more communication. Now you know to be hands off with somebody. A number of producers come in and make the approach, and you threaten to punch them in the mouth, or threaten to knock their head off for talking to you or looking at you like you're a woman. When you approach a real man about his masculinity, you're going to get a real reaction back. It's a difference when a guy walks in a room and when a man walks into a room. And a man don't take the same things that a guy will accept. So always be the man in the room. And that's always been my whole thing, and have lost businesses because I don't bend over in that way. I don't compromise. I don't play gay roles. I don't kiss a man. I don't do that shit, because the man card means everything.
So now that I have two alpha men
Wow.
with me today, I would love to know how it is, if you've ever been, put in these situations for advancement. How do you maintain your man card? Because even in politics, we know so many of our politicians swing both ways. And, right now we have reports from Candace Owens that RFK Jr. has, sexual blackmail against him, so on and so forth. But what's your message, just to remain an alpha man? Most conservatives will purport to be, but not all of them are.
You can go ahead first, Enrique.
So
You're the special guest.
this is what the Proud Boys do, right? We make better men. And how do you make better men? You make better sons, better neighbors, better brothers, and iron sharpens iron. So on these situations, there's always that temptation, right? That temptation to either sell your soul for a buck, or a piece of ass gets put in your face. So these things are important to have some resolve. And I'm not going to say that I haven't given into like that temptation before. It's part of life. But like, my mother didn't raise an idiot. My mother raised me to be a man. My mother raised me to have principles. And some of those principles, like I said, some of those principles slip, but those slips are the way that you learn. And I learned very early in life that those temptations, you need to do everything in your power to stay away from, right? Because that's why they're called temptations. And that's what sin is. It tries to reel you in, and it tries to tell you that it's right when it's actually wrong. So I have not been invited to a Diddy party, right? And if I were invited, I wouldn't go. I've been to a lot of parties, not the kind of parties that he's been throwing. So I think it's just fortitude. I think it's how you're raised, and if you weren't raised that way, you could still learn to be that way. It's about morals, and then it all comes back to culture. What are you consuming? What kind of media are you consuming? Who are you following? Right? Because tell me who you're with and I'll tell you who you are is another thing that a lot of parents tell you. And I had a lot of bad friends on the wrong side of the road, but I kept them at a distance. When they needed help, I helped them, but I knew that that's as far as I can go. So yeah, that I think what Terrence said there is very important, and he's a very strong man to say no to the temptation.
I start with Terrence Howard is one of the most intelligent people in the world right now. If you know anything about Terrence Howard, he's a genius, to be honest. And what he said there was definitely spot on. And all men should always act like that, should always be that. And you can tell, like I said, you can tell when a guy walks in the room and a man walks in the room. A man controls the room, and you can feel it. You can feel the presence. You can feel the aura of men,
Amen.
real men. And I raised 3 boys that are men now, and I raised them the same way my father, raised me. And he said, you never bow down to anybody that you feel is less than you. You always hold your head high, and you always look. A real man will always look you in the eye when he shakes your hand. They say a punk won't. These are my dad's words, right? A real man will always look you in the eye when he shakes your hand. A punk won't. And he said, and then you know who to be around, who to associate, yourself with. Because Dad always told me, always be careful who you associate yourself with. Always be wary of your friends, right? And I carried that, my whole life, with integrity and honesty. When I ran for Congress in 2020 and 2022, I'll never forget. I got a phone call, right? I got a phone call, and well, actually, I got a couple of phone calls, because I was really in 2024, especially the lead candidate out of Virginia until Kevin McCarthy stepped in with a lot of money, and a lot of his people followed, right? But I got a phone call, and they said, when you win, here's what's gonna happen. Someone's gonna come up to you. They're gonna put your hand around your shoulder, put their hand around your shoulder, and they're gonna tell you, hey, this is what you're gonna need to do. And he said, at that point, you need to either be a man and say no, or be a yes man and go along with the program. And he's saying that program is not going to be a easy program to walk away from. They're going to throw a lot of money at you. They're going to throw, whatever they need to capture you, that's what they're going to do. And of course I was like, all right, cool, because I'm like, I can't be bought, right? And how I can't be bought, because they were basically in 2024, they were buying Kevin McCarthy's Speaker of the House votes. They went around the country, and I mean, and people that ran for Congress know this. They went around the country asking candidates, will you vote for Kevin McCarthy for Speaker of the House? I was a no. I was a hard no. When I went hard no on Kevin McCarthy, he dumped $450,000 into my opponent's campaign account. And then everyone on the Hill, you had Steve Scalise, you had I can go down the list. Basically, all the Rhino, all the establishment, joined in. And this is why she sits in Congress today and I don't, because they outspent me, with the Uniparty. I mean, this is on both sides, but you have to be able to say no to corruption. You have to be able to say no to the possibility of you being bought and being compromised. Because here's the problem in Congress right now. Here's the problem. I believe with with Pam Bondi. Here's the problem with a lot of them. A lot of them are compromised. A lot of them have been compromised, like at parties. I've been to some of those parties, especially when we were running. I've been to some of those parties, and they get to drinking alcohol. And I've heard some real stuff come out of some of these people's mouths as they engaged in the alcohol. And I can see very easily how they get compromised, because they get stupid. They get very stupid. They get loose. So yeah, but you have to definitely always be a man in the room in that case, for sure.
So Eugene Robinson said, so these people actually study you. They look for weaknesses or perceived weaknesses. then they attempt to strike when they think you won't say no. You know what?
It's
I
called
will,
opposition research.
right. I do have a question for you, Enrique.
Yes.
I've been seeing some very ill-mannered treatment towards J6ers, um, you know, especially within the party, people being removed from events. Um, what's your um, what's your fight yet and still as a J6er, especially amongst people who are supposed to be on your side, or a party who is supposed to stand with you? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's the establishment trying to crawl their way back out of their hole. I think that what we're seeing is like a resistance in the establishment and the uniparty fight back on some of these things. This isn't new to us. I mean, I've been dealing with it, and my guys have been dealing with it since inception, since 2016. You know, we're not your run of the mill conservatives, right? We drink a lot, we cuss a lot, you know, we're middle class workers, we're business owners. So I understand why some people don't like us, but where I don't understand is how some people know who we are. They claim to be conservative, and then they still want to crap and shit all over us, right? There was an issue this week, and you know, this is my first time back on Twitter since 2017. I've been banned since 2017. And in 2017, it was a different monster. You know, there was a whole bunch of liberals on there, and you know, they were nasty or whatever. Now you got these something that happened yesterday. Joe Biggs was banned on Twitter, right? 2-time Purple Heart recipient. We're trying to get him a pardon. He's only got a commutation right now. You know, his veteran benefits are horrible. And then you have this little group within the QAnon community that have they have different group chats within like Telegram and Signal, and they mass reported Biggs because they think he's part of, well, I don't think they actually think that he's part of like some cabal, right? And they go against a lot of the president's friends like Roger Stone and Flynn and myself. And I spend most of my time on Twitter like dodging these attacks from people that say that they're conservative, instead of like uniting and fighting against like what's actually going on, which is a culture. And I think it's also a tactic to kind of distract us from the situation. And those are the people that kick us out of those events. You know, those are the conservative ink that we still see, but we have seen a giant change in the movement. You know, it isn't the movement from 2016 to 2017. It's a lot stronger. And you know what amazes me is when I came out of prison, I didn't know what to expect. You know, it was shocking, right? The culture had changed so much and in the right direction to me that it was a shock to the system. And I'm still trying to process it. So I'm happy. I'm happy that I did those 3 years. I'm ecstatic about it because what the left did is they made the claims about us so preposterous that your average everyday American didn't believe it. And because of that, because they went overboard with prosecuting you and prosecuting 1,600 others and prosecuting President Trump, the culture shifted because they knew what Americans didn't want was a weaponized justice system. So I'm happy that my 22-year sentence exposed a lot of that. But there's still a lot of work to do, and there's still a lot of minds to change, and there's still I encourage the people watching this show to get off your asses when it comes to these midterms. Knock on doors for your favorite candidate or run for office. It seems like a daunting task, but it's not, and it's what we need. We need action. We don't need more social media posts. Social media, obviously, I do say that it does help, but you need to come off the screen, put the phone down, and you need to change the world because we only got 4 years. We only got 4 years. And what's looking to be the Democratic nominee for 2028, the picks, including Gavin Newsom, you already see that he's already gearing up towards those to be the Democratic nominee. And I think he has a very good chance. And he is more dangerous than what we saw with Kamala Harris and what we saw with Joe Biden. Because he talks better, he speaks better, but his policies are even more far left than what we saw with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So,
Well, I mean, we'll see, because there's also money being put behind Rahm Emanuel coming out of Chicago. So we're going to see what they pull off, because they know AOC can't win. It doesn't matter what they do.
oh, please run her.
Smarten her up. She's just not smart enough. So I think John Kennedy said that she was the reason why there was instructions on a shampoo bottle. So I think they're going to run a double ticket, between Gavin and Rahm. I got some information, some intel on Rahm's exploratory committee in Chicago. So that's a very serious situation, since now he's actually on a higher level than Gavin. He's been an ambassador to a foreign country. He still is an ambassador to a foreign country. He's speaking very globally right now. He's not really on the domestic level. Gavin Newsom, I get, people have short memories. The fires in California will be a short, lived memory by the time 2028 comes. So people always say, oh, the Democrats are in the dirt. They don't have a plan. I tell everybody, Democrats always have a plan. So we're going to see what happens. And I don't know how much time you have, because I remember you told me you would let me know when you had to go. But G, we have another clip, and you can let us know what it is that you have to exit.
I'm good. I'm good for as long as you guys want. My 4 o'clock canceled.
Run the Candace clip, please.
The truth, okay? The more you hang out in these circles, the more you learn which individuals there seems to be blackmail on. And RFK Jr. is one of them. They have sexual blackmail on RFK Jr. That was told to people in my circle, and Jessica Reed Krause knows that. Okay, this is not something that I would say unless I was certain of this, of what they were fearful of coming out about him, something that would be extremely embarrassing.
So I'm having a problem, not saying that I agree with Candace, and I'm not saying that I disagree with Candace. What I'm saying is I'm having a problem with a man who was appointed our health director and was against, multiple vaccines of children, and to see within 30 days the opposite, even him endorsing mRNA vaccines, something that we all fought for our, body autonomy against. So what do you guys think about this comment? How do you guys feel about where RFK has gone, as opposed to, the, hyperbole that he was talking during the elections?
Jerome,
well,
there you go. Yeah.
Okay, cool, thanks. Well, for me, I was never an RFK fan, because of, everything he stood for. I mean, he was behind all the Democrats. He stood for the murdering of Black children in the womb. He stood for, the jab. He stood for, everything he proposed to be against during the election and coming on, Trump's side, and to be named the Department of HHS. I was never comfortable with that, because he's a liberal, and he's always been a liberal. And to me, I've always said you cannot bring a snake in your house thinking it's a pet when it's a cobra, right? And I was totally against having a lifelong Democrat that before the election he was still, and he even ran his election on a bunch of this stuff. Yeah, I'm behind making the kids safe and getting rid of the red dye and all that stuff, and and against the vaccines and everything. But you can't trust the fucking Democrat, You just can't, especially in top positions. You know, when you had people like Oladipo down there, you know, in Florida, who came out against the COVID vaccine and they stopped that shit, you know, down in Florida. When you got a person like that, you know, you don't even make him the CDC director. You know, you bring in some asswipe, you know, that was a liberal. I'm like, you can't do that in these, you know, trying to, you know, be, you know, across the line, I guess. You're trying to, you know, bring in, you know, the independents and things like that. So you're going to bring in somebody that they like. I understand the politics behind it. I get it, but you can't do that. I mean, you can't do that. And, you know, and they may have something on RFK. I have no clue. You know, you know, I mean, Candace has been a little spot on lately, you know, when she left, since she left the Daily Wire and can actually speak the truth because she's not being ran by the Mossad or the Jews over there with Ben Shapiro, you know, and she's actually speaking. So maybe it's true, you know, but I put like this, I wouldn't doubt it. A lot of them are blackmailed. A lot of them are blackmailed. I mean, and you know, and it's more than probably than people probably realize, because you have to look at it like this, right? Nobody has been arrested. Nobody has been held accountable for shit. You can take this back years. Nobody has been held accountable for nothing. The Afghanistan debacle. Nobody has been held accountable. You got Benghazi. Nobody's been held accountable. This shit still lives. This shit is still out there. They can still be held accountable, right? I mean, and even, you know, unfortunately, you know, President Trump didn't hold people accountable in 2016, you know, while we had the Senate and the House. And I understand you had all those assholes in there. You had the, you know, the rhinos blocking things, you know, but, and then again, he comes right back and he endorses these same people. So some of this shit don't make sense to me. You know, maybe I'm just too cynical. You know, maybe, you know, I'm not understanding the politics behind it, you know, but you can't, you know, put your faith into a person who 6 months ago, you know, was against everything you stood for.
So there's something important that Jerome just said, and I might post it on my Twitter. You can never trust a fucking Democrat. Never. Now, as to
Hey, Nora.
now as to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., let me tell you something. I've been locked away for 3 years, and I had very limited access to the news. So and health isn't my lane per se. My lane is justice, and my lane is culture. Would they have sexual blackmail on RFK Jr.? Very possible. That's what they do. As far as his positions on things, I don't know, you know, and I don't know too much about what he's done in the past 3 months. Because I wasn't a big consumer of the news while I was in there when it didn't come to elections. And I haven't been a big consumer of the news that doesn't have to do with justice and culture. So I can't talk about things that I don't know, but it all boils down to that one comment. You could never trust a fucking Democrat ever. I don't know what his previous positions on things were. He as Jerome said, if he was pro-abortion, we know where that came from. We know what target Margaret had when she created Planned Parenthood. So those things are key and essential to judging what a person's going to do in the future. So when it comes to his policy on health, again, that's not my lane, but never trust a fucking Democrat.
Well, I mean, we can't even trust Amy Coney Barrett at this point. So, I mean, who can we trust? You know, let's keep it 100. Her voting, you know, against the safety of Americans. That vote was a 5-4. You know, and it should have never been that close. It should have been 6-3. She's voted against Trump on other issues, and consistently in these last 3 votes, she has been on the side of Democrats. So who can we trust? You know, that's where we get. And for me, I just leave it at Trump. I don't, like you said, we don't have to be down with his appointees to support Trump, because I just don't. I liked Kash Patel, but you've got people leaking within the department that he's now off the ATF or the DEA, whichever it is. So we can't trust anybody in this administration. People are having their phones snatched because there are leaks everywhere. So, right now, the only verbiage I'm having to take seriously is the verbiage coming out of the mouth of Donald John Trump. So, that Democrat not being able to trust him, for the most part, that's a given. When we get into spaces where we can't trust our Supreme Court appointees, we've got a big problem because we don't know which direction that can go. So yeah, I'll just leave my faith in Trump.
Yeah, here's the thing too. As far as Rhino, you can't trust a Rhino either because a Rhino is a fucking Democrat too. You cannot trust a Rhino because they flip and flop. You never know which side they're going to go on. Here with, you mentioned Amy Coney Barrett. I think she was a Trojan horse myself. I mean, she was a Mitch McConnell, basically appointee, really. And so, can you trust Mitch McConnell? No, never. So. I mean, it like I say, comes down to the point. Yeah, we have to trust what Trump is saying, and we have to trust Trump. I trust Trump. I've been a Trump supporter. Not 100% because made some questionable decisions, with people to me. But it's really getting slim, and yeah, he'll be there for 3.5 more years. But like I said, we have 1.5 years, and here's the thing that people need to understand: the election season is ramping up. Okay, to the midterms, 2026. People, they're starting to ask for money, right? And so the emails are going out, things. So you really need to watch what they do and not what they say. Okay, because these people's ultimate goal is to get reelected and to stay in office. And the games that they play, a lot of these games are theatrical, and they will take it all the way up to the midterms because they want to stay in office. So they're going to tell you what you want to hear, but you better watch what they're doing. We have 1.5 years. We have, like say, almost 2 years to get stuff done. Whether arrests happen or whatever, but Trump's agenda, for the most part, has to be completed by 2026. It has to be. Because we don't know which way the midterms are going to go. And if the midterms go off the rails, if the House flips for some unknown reason, it shouldn't. We have a pretty good cushion there. But a lot of people are leaving the House running for other office. You got the dude up in Michigan. He's going to run for governor, right? He's in the House. So you have people that are jumping to these other positions to where now the cushion that we have in the House may not be so big. And if people don't start seeing some real action, I think they're gonna, lose faith, and they may even just sit out the midterms. I mean, we already don't have enough people voting in the midterms. Please go out and vote in these midterms. And if you have elections in between now and 2026, you need to go and vote in those too, and try to keep conservatives in your state house, in your Supreme Courts, and these different elections that that may be coming up in your state. But I think our time is very, very short, and I'm pretty sure this is why Trump is rushing things through. Hopefully, the House and the Senate will push his agenda through. But you got those vipers up there, you have those rhinos up there, whose sole job is to slow it down, whose sole job is to not have him put his complete agenda through, and you're witnessing that right now. I think.
You know how much shit I got when Trump selected Barrett as, and I knew that he had a very, very small window to do that. But you know how much shit I got when he nominated her, and I looked into her background, and I said, this is probably one of the worst choices that he has for Supreme Court justice. I mean, he did great with the other picks, but when it came to her, everybody's like, oh, what are you, anti-Trump or whatever? And look at the results. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. We've seen her swing left almost every single time. And I think that I'm going to go back to it. We have a short period of time, and these these people, we have to hold their feet to the fire. And we got a very limited amount of time. And you said that we're going to have probably a smaller cushion. One job that I don't envy, understanding how the job is Mike Johnson. You know, I don't envy his job. I think he should do a lot better job, but I don't envy that job right now, because you do have rhinos in there, right, that are just not going to buck, and they're going to go ahead and they're going to side with the Democrats almost 100% of the time. You're going to see it happening with this budget and these tax cuts that are coming in. You're already going to see it happen with those. So if we give him a slimmer majority, or it flips the other way and he stops becoming Speaker of the House, we're going to run into a big problem. And I think that we're going to run into, I'm going to predict this right here. I think we're going to run into like some type of constitutional crisis. I don't know what that is, but I think we're going to run into some constitutional crisis moving into the last 2 years of Trump. And I think that they need to start, the conservatives need to start codifying these executive orders that the president, these awesome, badass executive orders that the president has done. You know, he's signing some bills into law, I think, right now as we're speaking. He was slated to do that at 3:00, so they're probably done. But that's not enough. You know, executive orders aren't enough. That's his power to do. But the next president that comes in, you know, whether it's Rahm or another Democrat, right? If they are allowed to steal the election again, Wisconsin, you know, it was a 50-50 and we got the better one. We lost the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. That's fine. And we won big on the voter ID. So I think if implemented properly, Wisconsin will go red moving forward. So that short celebration that Democrats had with the Supreme Court, their Supreme Court pick in Wisconsin, is going to be short-lived. But I think that people need to get off their fucking asses and they need to start working, putting in the work.
Well, I mean, I definitely agree with that. We don't know what's going to happen coming towards the end of Trump's tenancy in the White House right now. And it's funny that you say that, you know, we're going to have this constitutional crisis, because I was thinking the other day, just being, you know, in the midst of all of this fighting and anger and hatred within the conservative Republican Party, that I no longer wanted to be a conservative. I wanted to be a constitutionalist. And I'm really heavily weighing this battle out right now, because people who I know that I put my life on the line for, you know this very well, you know, the hatred that I see coming out of this movement, it is really, it's off-putting at very high levels for me. So I'm working to make sure, you know, this transition into a constitutionalist is authentic, which means, you know, studying the Constitution top to bottom. And so I'm really at that point right now, because that's how disappointed I am in these party measures right now. But on to entertainment, which I guess we've had a lot of entertainment with these tariffs, watching this back and forth, the battle of the guns from all of these different countries, having the immediate representation of over 70 countries attempting to come to the table to negotiate at the same time, causing Trump to repeal tariffs for 90 days. You know, this is an awesome thing, this battle with China, and China not backing down. But what's going on in China right now is very entertaining. G, roll this clip, please. A heavy blow to our manufacturing, you know, conglomeracy here in the United States, because it's not really a lie. which is why I found humor in it. And I think Chinese humor is definitely underrated. But when you look at what the state of our manufacturing, because it's all been shipped out to other countries, whether it's Mexico, China, Turkey, you name it, that parity right there is, has a lot of truth to it. So, and we can't rebuild American manufacturing overnight. So they're saying, okay, play with us if you want to, but we know what our workers kick out and we know what your workers kick out. So I'm trying to figure out, because there's a lot of truth to that, how this administration's path forward to consistently rebuilding our manufacturing fundamentals, outside of him saying, you know what, we built 8 ships since 2017 and China built 1,807. We're going to start building ships again, and we're going to teach people how to sail them. We are light years behind China in so many ways. So these tariffs and this battle with China, I'm interested in hearing both of you guys' interpretation of what you think this is.
So I find that video funny, right? Because I assume that that's trying to make fun of us, right? If things were to shift over to American manufacturing, that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. It's like, yeah, okay, well, would you rather a real video of some kids, some child labor doing the same thing? Like, you're supposed to be proud of your fucking job, right? If I had to provide for my family, believe me, I'd be there stitching whatever it is that they're stitching to do it. That's what's called bringing. Are we too good for hands-on work? Are Americans too good and too lazy to do that? And the truth is, yes, we've become lazy because we've been dependent on China for manufacturing, right? And maybe, obviously, that's an AI video. Maybe if you're that fat, maybe you should do some fucking labor, right? Maybe you should do some labor. Americans have gotten lazy. And the first thing, here's what I find so awesome about the immigration, the fight over immigration, the fight over the culture of immigration, right? When you talk to Democrats and they're talking about immigration, they're like, well, who's going to pick your fruits and who's going to clean your house? What the fuck do you want? You want slaves to clean your house? Like, get the fuck up, clean the house, grab the broom and grab the mop and do it yourself. Okay. Those jobs are not too good for American labor, because if I had to, because I've had to when I was younger, right? I've had to fucking work a farm. I've had to grab a shovel. I've had to grab a pickaxe. And like, does that make me less of a person? No, it makes me more of a person. It makes me more of a man to do that. So what I find funny about that video is it tries to be insulting, but that's exactly what it should be. That's exactly what it should like. Americans back on the manufacturing plants and back to jobs, because you saw a lot of people on those sewing machines. There should be hundreds of thousands of people doing that, right? That's exactly what it takes. The Make America Great agenda, right, sometimes doesn't look pretty on video. Sometimes it doesn't. Like, the things that Trump's doing with these tariffs, it's not meant to be appealing, right? It's putting America back at their jobs. So I agree 100% with that video. I agree with 100% with that video that those jobs should come back to America, right? And like, it's almost like we've been fucked by China for so long that it's the norm, right? It's become the cultural norm to be like, oh, I don't want to do that. You know what I want to do for the rest of my life? Sit in front of that fucking camera and speak on a microphone. That's what all the kids want to do. They want to be on Twitch. They want to stream video games. They want to do that. No, get off your fucking ass and get on a sewing machine. Okay? Because that's what it takes. That's what it takes to put food on the table for your family. That's what it takes to be a man, to learn to work with your hands, to have a trade. Because there, within that little group that you saw doing that, there's a lot of jobs that go behind it. The people that fix the sewing machines, the people that deliver all the linen, right? The people that manufacture the threading that goes to that machine, the truck drivers that push it to the stores, right? And then the end consumer, right? it's going to get worse before it gets better. And that's the medicine. That's the medicine. When you were a little kid, you didn't like fucking taking medicine, right? That's what you got to do in order for American greatness and to happen. Those things have to happen. I've been a business owner my whole life, almost. When I was younger, I did work for multiple companies, but that's how I learned how to become a business owner. We need to stop depending on fucking Walmart. We need to stop depending on Amazon. We need to stop depending on how do you pronounce it? Temu or whatever. That's like the new thing. Temu.
I've never bought anything from that shit.
Right? It looks appealing sometimes. You look at it, you're like, oh man, I could get a drone for like $70 and it comes in the box. It is appealing, but what's right is not appealing. What's good for America is not. It's not meant to be. But in order to do that, we need to change the culture and we need to stop getting fucked by all these other countries, right? We need to stop championing for these other countries to bring it back. We've been fucked on a raw deal for China, so fuck the Chinese government. Okay, if it would be me behind that Resolute desk, I'd stop all shipping, period, from China. No, so I think that I'd be a lot worse when it came to these tariffs, but I think tariffs work, and we have to trust the president on these tariffs. And when did the fucking left, the party of Occupy Wall Street, became so fucking pro Wall Street? I don't know when that happened. I don't know when this world shifted, because it was never about actual morals. It was about just beating the other side, right? Beating Republicans and beating conservatives, right? This Tesla thing, right? These Tesla protests, which I'm going to on Saturday. When did the party of environmentalism and green energy turn against the number one company that has done the most for green energy in America, which is Tesla? And for me, it wasn't a thing. I've had a Tesla since 2017, right? When Elon Musk was a liberal, right? He made a better product, and it was an American product. So it's a good car. It's not just like, oh, well, I'm going to buy America. He had a better product. And that's why I purchased a Tesla way before all of this. And I think that their party has no morals. Their party is all about power. And that power, unfortunately, is not in their hands. And we saw what their power consisted of for 4 years. I pray to God that they never, never have the levers of power again. And it's up to us, because we're all that's left. It's up to us to make sure that they never again do what they did for the 4 years of President Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and what they did for 8 years of Obama and the Joe Biden presidency. America's back, and they hate it, and they're clawing their way out of it. This is America first, and this is what it looks like.
I'm just waiting for the point where we're America only, and then I'll be happy, because we hear America first, but we don't have to engage in all these extraterrestrial, activities with foreign countries. I think if we focus on America and America only, and I think Trump is leading the hedgeway for that. I am waiting for this golden era that has not existed since I've been alive. So I'm, hopeful for the future with Trump's agenda. I know I feel myself separating from party politics, which, is also weighing on my decision to run for office, because you do an exploratory situation on what's happening within your party to see how electable you can be. And just seeing so much that I despise within the party, and from some of the bigger influencers on X, on these platforms within the party, spreading so much hate and so much division, do you want to take on that? Because the internet always wins. But now we're going to roll that Kanye clip. G, roll it for me. And as somebody who has a personal,
Connection.
So I'm going to preface that as someone who, Ye is very dear to my heart. I will always be in his corner, no matter what. You know, being hired as his publicist, you realize, you know, swiftly that nobody can be the publicist for Kanye West. And so I moved into a different position in his executive staff. But what, Spike Lee made a movie, Black Klansman, and everybody thought it was fine. When Ye becomes a real Black Klansman to speak from his life experiences, and I've been there when Adidas have tried to crush him. I have seen this man. The only time that I ever saw Ye get ambitiously out of pocket emotionally was when Adidas was coming to the office. And he was right. When he told Adidas, when he was going to leave them, they said, no, you're not. You're going to leave us. You're not going to leave us. And he said, yes, I am. They said, okay, we're going to take everything from you. And a company like Adidas, which was founded by Nazis, turned around and used anti-Semitism against Ye. And I was present for all of this. I know what he went through. As far as Diddy, him saying that he makes this connotation in between, he and Diddy, it's because of the overall powers in the entertainment industry that do have, the construct to come in and take everything from you if you don't play the game. And Diddy has played that construct. I don't play, for me, I've been to the Diddy parties, but the Diddy parties that were public, not the Diddy parties that were at the house. But Diddy was part of that construct with people like Justin Bieber and Usher. Either you're going to do what I say, or I'm going to take you out of, your position. So this can go both ways. But as far as Ye saying what he said, I witnessed it. I know it happened. It still happens. He has just figured out a way to not be cancelable. And people still, if you take away what you feel about him as a person personally, and you listen to his message, he does tell the truth on many things, not everything, but many things. And so I'm wondering what you guys feel about that clip.
So I'm going to tell you, I like putting things in compartments, right? I could say I dislike some things and I like some things, and I'll tell you why I dislike some things and like some things. And the beauty of this American experiment, right? And if you read the readings, the writings of John Locke and people like Thomas Jefferson and people like Thomas Paine, there's a little bit of anarchy within the American system, and not the anarchy that we see with like Antifa or anything like that. There's a little bit of anarchy with the American system, and you could see it enshrined in our First and our Second Amendment, right? Our First Amendment is about free speech and the freedom of the press, right? And free speech, no matter if you agree with it or not, it's not meant for things that you just remotely, right, agree with, or I'm sorry, remotely disagree with. It's for the things that you really give you this feeling inside, right? And that is still free speech, right? What he's preaching is his freedom of speech, and that's what I find beautiful about it, beautiful about this system. We also see that with the Second Amendment, although the Second Amendment doesn't exist in the United States at all. Okay, there's these words that say "shall not be infringed," and I know this is a very old talking point, but "shall not be infringed" means you don't even step a fucking toe in it, right? And that's what I love about this American experiment is that things like that are free speech, and our number one tenet within the Proud Boys is free speech. Right. We don't chastise people for how they feel about whatever, it crosses a line when you go into violence. Right. And I've seen these under these tweets, these violent posts where, oh, let me find you. I'm going to kill you. Blah, 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 blah. Whether you agree with him or not, it is his right to say so. And I defend his right to say so. And I defend his right to wear whatever he wants to wear. I've seen it, and what's funny is back when I started with the Proud Boys, they had this at Art Basel, Miami, right? They had this display where they got the American flag and they cut it up and they made a Klan hood over it, and it was a liberal that was attempting to say the whole white supremacist thing, like this cringe thing, and liberals were celebrating it all over the internet. But
How much
when
did that sell for?
I think it sold for like $500,000
Yeah,
each
sold
each
for some
hood.
incredible amount of money. Yeah.
It was crazy amount of money, and I remember it trending on Twitter and liberals being like, "Oh yeah, this is super cool and stuff." But when a black man wears a black hood, right, suddenly it's so bad because it's not about morals; it's about where his positions are. And again, like I disagree with him on many things, but I think that he should never be silenced, and I agree with him on a lot of things that he also says. But I think that's again, I go back. I think that's the beauty of in the American system. It was meant to have a little bit of anarchy in it, and these are the moments that, like example, I'm a Cuban. I hate Che Guevara, and nothing excited me more than seeing a picture of him with a 7.62 rounds right through his skull, right? And in Miami, I see a lot of people from different cultures. It's usually not Cuban cultures. Wear that Che Guevara shirt.
They don't
As
know.
disgusting and distasteful. And
Right.
Jay-Z actually wore it one time here, and he tried to get in a club that was owned by a Cuban. The guy was like, "Nah, you're not coming in here, bro." Like as disgusting as it is, I'll never like tell somebody, like if I see them at the airport, I won't even like engage with them. I respect the right for them to do it. So like if I'm sitting in a corner, if the Proud Boys are sitting in a corner and there's some dudes holding the Swazi flag on one side and there's a dude holding like a communist flag and the Che Guevara t-shirts on the other side, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to smile because that's exactly how it's supposed to be. I think, and I just saw it come up right when I was about to say it. Thought crimes is what they put me in prison for. My
Right.
speech is what they put me in prison for because I wasn't there on January 6th. I celebrate the events of January 6th on January 6th as I saw them happening? Yes, absolutely. Like the majority of Americans did, right? Because there is a silent majority that didn't go out to vote, and hopefully they did come out in 2024. But it was my right to say it, no matter how disgusting the left saw it, and they wanted to imprison me for it for the rest of my life. So my pushback to those people is when they build, and I'm actually going to quote Killer Mike and ELP from Run the Jewels here from Atlanta. When they build a cage and that cage is done with you, it's done with them, it comes for you. Right. So I never want to build that cage. I don't want to build that cage. I saw what that system is. I saw what that system does to all Americans. I saw how easily that system is weaponized against us. Right. What they did to January 6ers, it wasn't a new thing. It wasn't like, oh, we need to make something up. No, they got the old playbook like they did with Malcolm X and a lot of civil rights leaders. And they brought it and they just changed exactly how who the subject was, and that's what they did with January 6ers. So it's not a new thing that we're experiencing in this country. It's a thing that's been happening for a very long time. I'd say even since inception of this country, the seditious acts by John Adams, our second president, was ruled unconstitutional because they knew exactly how those laws would work. If you commit an act of treason, that's an act of treason. When you can't commit an act of sedition per se, because it's technically an act of, it's a thought crime, is what it is. So I actually appreciate Kanye for pushing the limits and pushing the boundaries, because it's what I do. You push the limits and you push the boundaries on that First Amendment, because you always have to push back and you always have to be vigilant, because they will put you in a fucking cage.
You know, my thing is, when you do certain things, you learn who you're not supposed to talk about, right? There's this group of people you can't talk about, and then you find out who really controls the system. Okay, and those people control the system. Those people control our government. Those people control the people in our government. All you have to do is go to Washington, D.C., walk in one of those congressman's office, except Thomas Madison, you will probably see an Israeli flag in there. And so when Kanye pushes the limit on that, it's free speech. Hey, and I commend him for that. Like I say, I don't agree with everything Kanye does, says, but I fought 27 years and served 27 years for this country for his right to do that and say that, just like any other group. Okay, I don't condone any other group for free speech and they wanting to protest as long as it's peaceful, right? Because that's in our Constitution, and that's what upset me the most about J6, because those people were there protesting peacefully and within their constitutional rights. And this country, or people in this country, really got them for a thought crime. And basically that's what it was. They were set up, and our government was involved in that. And so how far that goes and how deep that goes into who controls all of that is yet to be seen. Hopefully at some point we'll find that out. But I agree with Kanye. And as far as the political, being a constitutionalist or whatever, when they spent $7 million to beat me in my primary, half of that was Republican money. And so, after I lost my primary, I said, I am a independent, conservative constitutionalist. That's my title. That's my title. I run on a Republican because unfortunately we have two parties, where you can viably, possibly win a seat or be part of the government. You have Republican and, Democrat. And I would never ever run as a Democrat, because I don't believe in anything they stand for, and going back to the being against Elon Musk or for Elon Musk. Elon Musk has an American company that has done some good things for America, and the Democrat Party, they have no morals, they have no standards, they have no principles. Because if they did, they would probably be on board with what's going on right now, because Elon Musk was an environmentalist, right? He has an electric vehicle. This is what they, burn down fucking forests for. This is what, they do all this crazy shit for. They chain themselves to fucking trees and shit, right? And now all of a sudden, hey, they're for gas cars. Thank you very much. I'm for gas cars. Well, we're on board with that. Yay, liberals, right? But but they have no standards, zero standards, and I cannot ever get behind, a party that has no standards or principles like they do. So,
Well, I'm just going to say this. I don't think that there are principles in either party. And I'm learning that faster than I wanted to. But that is what it is. But I will say, I was there when Jamie Dimon at JP Morgan Chase closed down almost $1 billion of Ye's money. And that is not, according to our Constitution, legal. But nobody said anything about it. They allowed it to happen to this man. And that's what pisses me off, when you pick and choose when you want to be Americans, and then you go against Americans expressing their rights. He cannot legally sell merchandise right now because they closed down all the Yeezy shops because he wanted to print a swastika t-shirt. So these are the things that I want Americans to be wary of, because just because it's personal to you and you don't like it, what somebody says or what somebody does, and it's personal to you, so you side with the opposition against the Constitution, it will come for you one day. And that's what I want people to understand. And that's why the Constitution is so important to me. And that's why I'm breaking away from this party bullshit, because everybody is a hypocrite when it comes to them and something an issue personal to them. They'll side with what is comfortable for them as opposed to what the right thing to do is. So that's where I am on that.
Yeah, let me say something, jump on board with that. These laws that's popping up in these states, and unfortunately President Trump seems to be backing some of these laws, but these anti-Semitism laws. First of all, they totally use anti-Semitism wrongly. People have been brainwashed to use it that way, because anti-Semitism means that you are against Semitic people. The fucking Palestinians and Middle Easterns are Semitic people. You cannot be anti-Semitic unless you're against all of them, right? Because that's the definition of being anti-Semitic. You know, when you talk about, I mean, you know, these Khazarian Jews from Europe, they don't even have the DNA of being Semitic. So how can you even be against them? But this is the brainwashing that they've done to America. This is the brainwashing that they've done to most of their own people. This is the brainwashing that's going on now, because it's not anti-Semitic to not agree with a Jew or to not agree with Jewish people, right? It's just you just don't fucking agree with what they say. You know, you just don't agree with, you know, what they stand for. You know, if you don't agree with them blowing up fucking little kids and women in Gaza, that don't mean you're fucking anti-Semitic. That means you don't agree with them blowing up fucking kids and women in Gaza or Palestine. That's what that shit means. That doesn't make me, you know, anti-Semitic, you know, because they tried to throw that anti-Semitic moniker on me because the lady that I was running against was a Jew, right? And so they wanted to label me as anti-Semitic because, you know, I didn't agree with the jab, because I said, well, you know what? You know, to me, you know, they want us to get vaccine cards. They want us to get fucking bracelets to say we were jabbed to go into the restaurants. I'm like, is that like wearing a scarlet letter, you know, when the Holocaust happened? I'm like, that's like the same shit, right? You know, people, oh, that's anti-Semitic. You can never mention anything about the Holocaust. Why the fuck not? You know, well, you know, why can't I question it? You know, and that's the brainwashing that has gone on, you know, in this country. You can't say anything negative about the Jews, period. And you know, I have Jewish friends and everything, you know, and you know, so it's not that, you know, but that is becoming a thought crime. You know, you mentioned thought crimes. That's the shit, that's the scary shit. You know, right now, you know, being anti-Semitic. So who's gonna be the authority on if what you say is anti-Semitic or not? Is it gonna be a Jew? Is it gonna be a Christian? Is it gonna be, I mean, who's gonna be that authority? That's fucked up right now, you know, and I totally disagree with that. What's going on?
That's exactly what I meant about building that cage, right? These laws against anti-Semitism or whatnot, they're unconstitutional, period.
Absolutely.
You know, and I would hope that at some point it gets, I mean, I hope it doesn't have to get to all the way up to the Supreme Court, but I think that the Supreme Court would agree in a grand majority that in no way that any speech that prohibits one group from being chastised is anywhere near the Constitution. It goes back to what I said about anarchy, right? And we have it in Florida too. Like there is like these, you can't be anti-Semitic laws in Florida, and it is unconstitutional whether you agree or disagree with speech. But and I think that was a problem with the TikTok thing, right? Like they were making laws against TikTok specifically, right?
Right.
Instead of making a law against foreign governments holding our data, right? Because that's the problem. I actually go a step further, and I don't believe that at no point anybody should own your data, right? I think that you should be in control of all your data at all times, and nobody should be able to access it but you. I'd even go a step further, and I don't think that the U.S. government has any business with our data, and I think that they shouldn't be able to subpoena other companies for our data. And one company that I will applaud has never given in to data requests or illegal subpoenas by U.S. federal judges is Telegram. You know, they don't even answer their emails when it comes to that. They'll answer their customer service emails really quickly and Telegram messages and their issues with Telegram, but they will never even reply to a U.S. federal subpoena that we saw. So like these things, and actually, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't kept up with the case because I did read about it on the Wall Street Journal while I was inside. He got locked up in France. The owner, Pavel Durov, got locked up in France for the same thing, for not giving up the security keys, and he's had a fucking brass set of balls for holding on to that. So back onto this anti-Semitic law bullshit. There should never be any laws in the books that restrict you from speaking your mind, period. I think it's bullshit. I have in my organization I want to be clear on this because we talked about this in the very beginning of the show. We don't give a shit what your race is. We don't give a shit what your cultural background is or your preference in fucking religion, right? We have many members of the Jewish community within the Proud Boys, and every single one, 100% of them, agree that there should not be any laws against anti-Semitism, right? It's the stupidest fucking thing in the world, and I just don't understand how anybody could agree with that, or even promote these laws.
Well, and to that point, Ye has more Jewish employees than any other culture on the staff right now, and all of them love working with Ye. They understand that you'll never learn. Like, working with him will change your life. Like, there, in 5 minutes, if you're around him personally and you're listening to him personally in person, it changes your life. And Jewish people looking to move up the ladder know this, which is why, regardless of what Ye says, they are happily employed. So I think that should have been put on the record, because he's got more Jewish employees than anybody else, and I know that for a fact. So
I mean, those fans of Kanye back in 2000, what was it, 2004, 2005, when he called out George Bush, for Katrina. I mean, liberals went through the roof celebrating it, right? But you know what happened? He picked the other side, and they turned on him. You know, I didn't really give a shit because at that point I did work on the second George Bush campaign, and I did knock on doors for George Bush. I regret it. But he was ahead of his time. He was ahead of his time when he called out George Bush for those illegal wars that happened. And I'll be honest, when it comes to right now, what is needed right now, I don't give a shit what happens outside of the United States. I really can care less about what happens outside of this country, because we have so much problems here and so many issues here that I think we're going to be busy for the next 4 years.
Facts. That's true.
well, I want to thank you, amazing gentlemen, for joining us today. Me and Laverne allowing me to sit in for her. This was an amazing show, very insightful. I loved your in-depth, resonance on what you've been through and the path that the Proud Boys are on. Jerome, it's always a pleasure to have you on. I'm going to give the table over to you two to do your sayonaras. Enrique, I'll let you start.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for having me on. When you contact Laverne, tell her to call me. She's in my city, and I'd like to have a coffee.
Yes.
But I really do appreciate you guys giving us a voice when so many others didn't. I mean, there is a lot of people right now that have given us a voice, and you guys are one, so I really appreciate that. Our views aren't fringe, right? Our views are what the mainstream of the MAGA movement is right now. We've been preaching this for a long time. Donald Trump has been preaching this ever since before I was even born. He's been clear on his stance on tariffs. He's been clear on his stance on liberty. He has been clear on his stances on many things. So we've been with him. I personally have been with him since day one. I was actually hoping that he ran in 2012. I have a Facebook post that I could no longer go, but when he had his exploratory campaign, I did support Donald Trump in 2012. But the Proud Boys organization, they always ask me what our future is, and I'd like to invite people to look at our past. We will always fight for what's right. We will always fight for America first, and we will always fight right now, because what is needed right now is America only. It's not an isolationist policy. It's an interventionist policy that we've been facing in this country for decades, right? So now it's time to bring it back. And like Trump said, the best is yet to come. And I thank him again for giving me my life back and giving the lives of those that suffered so much through a weaponized government. And I'm going to say this again and again, but those people that made our family suffer, those people need to be held accountable. So I urge, even though I've criticized her and I've criticized Cash for actually Cash just for one thing right now, but I've criticized them. It's time to work and it's time to right the wrongs that happened to so many Americans and so many American families. So thank you guys for having me on. I appreciate you, Jerome. It's good to see you again, man.
Yeah, brother.
Hopefully we could grab a beer soon. Trevian, are you in Atlanta?
I am not. I am in Chicago.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure that we'll meet at some point, but thank you for having me on.
I wanted to
Shoot me a
ask you
text after
question.
this.
First of all, you all need to follow Enrique. That's his @ Look at the screen. Follow him, please. And then the second question I have, I wanted to send you a parting gift. What brand of cigarettes do you smoke?
Actually, I'm trying to quit, and you know what? Wait, I have to add this on here. One of the reasons why health isn't my lane, right?
I saw that.
Let me show you why health isn't my lane. So I got my cigarettes.
It's Marlboro. Okay.
Okay. I got one Red Bull can, two Red Bull cans, Cuban coffee, regular coffee, and a pack of Zyn. Hold on, I'm not done yet. I have a pack of Zyn, and then I have a vape. Okay.
Wow.
So like that's why health isn't my lane at all. But I am trying to quit right now because since I've gotten out, I have been smoking a lot. But I do smoke Marlboro Reds,
Okay. Alrighty. I was
Cowboy Killers.
looking for a photo for you for our promo flyer, and every picture had a cigarette in it. So I was like, you know what? That's going to be his, parting gift. We're going to send you a pack of Marlboro. Is that Reds? Are those 100s?
Are those Reds? Those are Reds, original.
All right. Well, thank Jerome.
Yeah, real quick. I know we got to get out of here. But first one, I like to say, it's one thing about, Enrique, smoking on air. That shit's real. Yeah, I mean, it's real, and this is what I like about live and not edited and not taped podcasts, right? Because you get the real person, right? Unscripted, unedited. Like my show. You guys go to my show, Radical Republicans Live Show, every Sunday. It's unscripted, unedited, unfiltered, uncensored. We're unapologetic about the truth. And once again, thank you, Laverne Spice. I know you're out there. Thank you, Travion, for bringing me back. And it's been an honor to sit here on this panel to be here with Enrique. Enrique is an American hero. Okay, he put his life on the line for this country, and what he believed in, and what a lot of people believe in, and what a lot of people think and want to say, they won't say because they're scared to get out here and put it on the line like Enrique did. And brother, I appreciate you, man. I love you for doing that. And it's been on. I'm gonna have you on my show. I'm gonna DM you or hit you up, and have you on my show, man. We're gonna do 2 hours. We're gonna do the full 2 hours on my show.
Trevion has my number.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I'll get your number
Yes,
from
my
you.
number.
Yes, of course. I
And
wanted to-
yeah, and I'm really glad, talking about just really quick on the tariff thing. I'm loving the gang bang against China because this is what this was. And this is what this is. It's a world gang bang to take down China. And for anybody not behind President Trump on this, anybody that don't understand and see this, we have all of these countries now coming to America. China has reached out to these countries and they've given China the stiff hand. They've given China the stiff. I'm like, nah, we're gonna go with the United States, yo. They're the biggest economy. They have really all the money because without us bringing in China imports, China wouldn't be shit. We made China, so now we need to put China back on the leash and put them where they belong and become this superpower. Once again, we need to get back to being an industrialized country and not a service country, and that's what we are, right now. So, I really appreciate it and love being here, and thank you very much. And hey, guys, people out there, viewing, like I say, get off the couch. Get off the couch, make your voices heard. If there's a liberal Tesla rally in your city, go out there. Go out there and be a counter protest to it, okay? Because don't let these communists, because liberals, they're communists, okay? And we have a communist fight in this country, and this is what this is all about. This is why, they, hug trees and then they don't hug trees because they hate America. And if anyone out there that, like I say, is against President Trump, and against this America First movement and against this America Only movement, they're the same people that I guess walk on airplanes and hope that it crashes, and that's insane. Every American should want America to be first. I'm with the America only agenda. I've preached that, before, because we need to just, take control basically of the world again. If we get sick, the world gets the flu, and that's the way it should be. America first, America only.
Awesome. Thank you all for coming in. We have almost 6,500 viewers today. We'll see Laverne back next week. You guys are so awesome, so special. Thank you for sticking with us through this. Enrique, Jerome, my guys, thank you so much. And we'll see you next week on The Hood Conservative. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laverne Spicer, and I'm asking for your support today. Thousands of Americans struggle to get food, and they wonder where their next meal is going to come from. But I'm here, been working with them for over 25 years to provide food to people that need it the most, right here at our community food bank. So today, I'm asking you for your support. Please provide a contribution to help make a real difference in our community and to help us feed people. And you can do it right here. Donate today on Cash App, and you will see the link above.